radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on the Cindy Cochran Show. We've got a great show today. I mean, a great show today. Just go get the handkerchief and the tissues and all that before we get to this show, because this is like incredible stuff that's going on right here in Conroe, and it's going to be amazing. And we thought we were on the map, but I think they just redrew the map. After this is going to happen, they'll have to redraw it. Listen, we got to thank our sponsor. It's always smart to start with thanking your sponsor. Isn't that right, guys? Yes, it is. And so Wootton Financial Group is our sponsor, and they've been for 3 years. It's just they keep re-upping, and we are I try and tell people, look, if they re-up like that, you would love to be a sponsor, because we talk about you and we're so nice. We never say anything bad about you. We would make sure that everyone loved your business and you, and you get to be on the shows, and so that we can help you with your business. No, we love our sponsors. So thank you, Chris Wootton, for being our sponsor and being so loyal. And he's been around Conroe for over 21 years, so he's done something right, right. So anyway, but now I want to introduce you to our guest, and we've got a lot to talk about. Now, Gary Parker, if you've been around this area very long, if you've been involved in the arts and you needed someone to come video and your birthday party or to do a series that's going to go on national TV, you would come to Gary Parker, because he's been around a long time. And I met him at Channel 13, and wow, it was a long time ago, whenever I used to interpret the news for the deaf. And it was amazing to, I met him again here in Conroe, and I did a show on a radio program that he had. And then, of course, Richard came in and threw him out and took over. And so that's what we know he didn't. I'm just kidding. Look, you can say the things about me. Yeah. I can say that about you.
Well, I always want to remind the audience that you get your news from Fox News. So take it as you will with that statement, but that's where she gets all her news.
Rock solid truth. And I'll tell you, look it up.
Yeah. And
he's Richard has been my fact checker ever since I started doing the radio shows. And I kept saying fact checker, and it sounded like I was saying fat checker. He's my fat checker, and so.
Well, you know why I do that, right? Not for the audience to be better informed; it's for you to be better informed.
Shut up! I know.
Because I think the audience knows you're wrong. I think they're like, she's making that up. I do it just to make sure you know you're wrong.
No, and once you check it, I was right. I'll say I'm right. We argue like brother and sister, and our grandma and grandson actually is what it's more like. But no, I love Richard. Richard's been great, and it's just like a family reunion, because we hadn't seen Gary in so long, so we were so happy to see him and be with him. So I want y'all to listen. All the kudos that we throw at Gary are well deserved, and he has done so much stuff, so many good things in this area. And everybody, they know Gary. You walk down the street with Gary downtown, that they're going to come up and say, "Aren't you Leonard Skinner?" No, you're not. Let me see. Are you
George Carlin?
Huh?
George Carlin.
George, that was it, because I was trying to think who was it. We used to say you look like George Carlin. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Isn't that great? All the stuff you have. But and what I like about having you on is because you will remember things I talk about. He doesn't have a clue, not a clue, and so it's fun to have someone that goes like, I remember that. That's you're not old, and I mean you're not as old as I am, but you still are, there, more hep to what was going on in my day. And then we have Mike Valdez, founder of Shattered Lives, and I watched your interview. In fact, that's where I grabbed the picture of you that I asked Gary to please send me a headshot of y'all and your and with Gary. If Gary hadn't won Rotarian of the Month, I wouldn't have had a headshot of you. And so, because I didn't know whether to go ahead and start sketching or what I remember. But Mike, you have got an incredible story to tell. And I'd love for you to tell why, and then how you got into the Shattered Lives, and explain what Shattered Lives is, because people, we tried to talk about it the other day, but I know you'll have much more better information than we probably had. But do that, and then we'll let Gary start talking about how you're getting ready to just blow up on TV in a series that will make everyone aware of what's going on. And you got the floor, the table. Go ahead.
What do I have, an hour and a half? How long?
Yeah, hour and a half. Yes. Could you condense that down? And I'm going to go take a break. No, you just condense that down to whatever you wanted to say.
Well, because I can talk for a long time about it. It is a passion. It became a passion of mine many years ago. In 1998, I was in working for the county attorney here in Montgomery County, when a friend of mine who was and I'm going to give credit to people along the way as I go, Debbie Jo Felder was a supervisor at the probation department here. And I was a prosecutor, and I became the chief of the division. So, we were always working together on different things. And she came to me one day and said, I had two of my probation officers come from Mansfield, Texas. They were at a conference or somewhere, and they saw this video. I want you to see it. Okay, so I'm game. They said, it's a great program we should think about helping with. I watched it. I cried. I immediately, took it to my boss, who at the time was the county attorney, was Frank Bass, and I showed it to him, and I don't know that he cried, but he looked at it and he said, make it happen.
Oh, that's great.
And at the time, because of the position I was in, I was already, I knew a lot of the community first responders, because I knew a lot of the law enforcement, because I worked with them closely, and so I started making contacts, making calls, and then other friends that I had along the way, including people at the hospital district, and I put together a small team along with Debbie Jo and some of her people, and then we went knocking on doors. The true history is we went knocking on doors for about almost a year, and that's in '98. We went to school districts, school boards, and showed the video that we had. It was a program about educating young people about the seriousness and dangers of drinking and driving at the time, and the effects of their actions, not just on them, but upon a whole community. And so it took us about a year to for someone to finally let us in the door. What we were being told was, oh no, this is too graphic. Our kids can't handle this. They can't do this. But if we showed it to a student group, student council group, along with the board, the students were like, we need this.
Oh.
We have a problem here. But most of the boards were refusing to do it because they didn't want to subject their children to the grossness of the videos, and they're not that gross, but they're just, lifelike, blood and guts type of thing. And so but they didn't want to do it. We finally, and I always give credit to the Willis High School. Ben Cooper was the principal at the time, and they said, come here. So that was our first program, and we got that lined up in 1999. Put it together, and it was a great show for us, and along with part of the program included meetings with parents ahead of time, with the kids ahead of time, just preparing for it. One of the basic principles, and I guess now that we don't do it anymore, I don't mind speaking about it all the time, is that we bring parents in, and it had to be a parent and a child together. We didn't do the program with just the kids. It had to have parental participation. It doesn't work otherwise. And so we had them come in. The kids would go to one room, and they'd get told what a fun time they're going to have. And we talk to the parents. We talk to them about the seriousness of the issue at hand. And then I'd turn around, or one of my people would turn around and go, now, as we pass out these papers to you, we want you to write an obituary for your child as if they died on a particular date.
Oh, my word.
And just as it affects you now, now, we had many a parent, and most people were like, what? You want me to do what? And I can't do this. And we're like, yes, you can. Because we had stories along the way about different people, county commissioner, a couple other people that we had who participated with us, who would say, well, I don't know, of course, and we take their phones away from them. Of course, back in the early 2000s, we didn't have that much of a problem, but it became a problem because kids had their phones and parents had their phones. And they're like, well, I need to talk to my, no, you can't. Because the reality is, if something happened today, you would not be able to speak to your child again. And you would not be able to ask them who they want as a pallbearer, what their plans were for the future, those kind of things. Because I had a commissioner come to me, or turn to me and say, I need to ask my daughter who she would want as pallbearers. I said, if you don't know now, you never would have known. And that's the truth. The reality is, from here to there, it changes just like that. And that's true. And that's real life. And so we did that, and then of course, during the day of the program, and our program consists of about a 30-hour program in the school. We go into school, we'd have, I think we may have seen Grim Reapers or pictures of Grim Reapers along the way, or maybe even the videos you'll see Grim Reaper along the way, standing on a car or something like that. And as a matter of fact, my best screensaver is that. You can see the screensaver. That's my.
Oh.
It's been mine for a long time. That's one of our T-shirts look like that. But anyway, so the Grim Reaper would patrol the hallways with our volunteers who would come out and knock on the door, the classroom door, and sometimes very loudly. I know Gary went with many of them in the class. Knock on the door, call out a student's name, and say, "Come with us." And then someone would read the obituary that was written by the parent to the entire class as the child stood there and listened to their obituary. That in itself had an effect. And kids being kids, not all of them were affected, but for the most part, they were pretty solemn. And I think Gary can attest to that. He went to many a classroom. Listening to that being read about that child, we take the child, and that was the last time pretty much any interaction they had with them. That happened all day long. Mid-morning, of that first day, we would have a simulated car wreck, which again you've seen videos and or pictures, where my team would put together a very realistic-looking accident. Realistic because we might have 20 kids in it. That's a little bit beyond what you might normally see, but because we wanted to have as many participate in it, we would.
Right.
We were probably using about anywhere from 60 to 80 kids throughout in the program. About 20 of those would be in the car wreck. And of course, Gary and his team would come along and video the whole wreck scene, along with the in-classroom things that we talked about a second ago. And so that was all part of it, and then we would take the kids on a retreat. We call it a retreat. For the end of the day, we would take them off, whisk them off to some location. Never told the parents, and that was the other thing. As a parent, you want to know where your kid is all the time. We'd say, we're going to take them. Where are you taking them? Can't tell you. We're not going to tell you because, again, one, we don't want you showing up looking for your child because you're missing them. And two, you're just not going to know. They're going to be busy. We're going to keep them busy. And we did. And I would, some of the kids were, some of the adults now who were in the program 20 years ago, I'm sure could tell you what they did at the retreat. We'd have speakers, and we might play some games and do whatever. But we had counselors. All throughout the day, we had a counseling team just in case. So we were pretty prepared as far as anything that could come up. And over the years, we had couple issues, obviously, but the counselors took care of the issues. We might call a parent. I think over all that time, we may have sent 2 or 3 kids home just because they couldn't even handle the reality of it and missing home or whatever. And that happened. Parents were a couple parents would call, and we had Debbie Jo was our parent coordinator, so she'd take calls throughout the evening. They were like, "How's my child? Your child's fine. They're fine. That's all I can tell you. You're not going to talk to them, but they're fine."
Oh, man.
And so the hard part about being a parent was just that, being able to be separated from your kid. Some would say, well, you can keep him if you want. Of course, they would say that in the beginning.
They say that at the beginning. Mm-hmm.
You can keep him, and we would, obviously have our time at the retreat and come back the next day for an assembly at the school, hence the 30 hours. We were going through the next day. And we were doing juniors and seniors because they were at the maturity level. They probably were best for it. Younger than that, and I had many a person asked me over the years, why can't we do the freshmen and sophomore? I said, because they're not mature enough. Truly, they're not mature enough for the subject matter. I mean, they may have seen the visuals, but they're just not mature enough to handle this. And so we would, come back, do a presentation at the school. Depending on the school and the size of the school, we might have to do two because junior and senior classes might be really big, the Woodlands being one of them. So we'd have a speaker come, we would speak. They'd watch the video that Gary worked very, very diligently overnight, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well, but to produce for the next day. And we're talking about an 8 to 12-minute video. They got longer, actually, as time went on. Because Gary got quicker and better. The experience of it all, what we need to present. And Gary was,
that's
an
amazing.
outstanding job. And we would present it to the school and the parents and whatnot. And over the years, we had different speakers who were either involved in a fatality or victims of, or they themselves were the victim and the perpetrator, the drunk driver, we'll call it. And so it was very heartfelt, a lot of that. There was a couple years we ended up, the TDC had a program that they were actually having their people come out and speak. They had prisoners come out and speak, a speaking program. And we used that. We had one inmate who, Carriage Hills, I couldn't remember the neighborhood the other day. There was a wreck back in the 90s in Carriage Hills where the young man in a Jeep flipped the Jeep with four of his friends, and he killed them all. And he walked away. Well, I mean, he was injured, but he killed four of his friends. And, that was hard on him. He got convicted and he got sent away. So he's in prison doing time. And he's on that prison circuit. And I went up and talked to him at the prison and visited with him, make sure what his message was. And it turned out to be a very profound message for the school. So we would bring him in, and he'd come in his white jumpsuit from the prison, and there'd actually be two guards escorting him. They'd stand on either side of the stage, and he would give his spiel, which was a very good story, talking about his friends and what he did and how he feels, even at that point, that today. He'd never forget him, and and look at him now. I mean, he was stuck in prison because of a bad choice that he made. It was, like I said, very profound. And just as an aside, one of the stories, Oak Ridge was the first school we ever used them at, and I think I got a call from the principal. He said, "There's a prison van here." I said, "Oh, didn't I tell you we're bringing a prisoner to the high school?"
Prisoner van showed up.
That was always a story. That was always a story. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell him that the very first time. After that, everybody knew. So
yeah.
But that's kind of one of those things that, oh yeah,
Wow.
I missed that point. But again, he was very good at his speaking. Later on, we had a young lady who went out after a date and decided she wanted to go back and see her boyfriend at the time, and she got back in her vehicle when she got home, and she had a wreck. She nearly killed herself. Traumatic brain injury, very bad situation. When she would come on stage, her parents were obviously there with her. She'd come in her wheelchair. It took a few years before she could actually stand up, but the first few years she was talking from her computer on a stand. She was talking to her through her computer because she couldn't speak. And one of the things one of the messages she delivered at the very end of her message was always, not everybody dies as a drunk driver. Not everybody dies, and she didn't. But for a lot of people, those kids, you could watch the whole audience be like in awe that she was there, and that everybody's thinking, I don't want to end up that way, because it's a terrible situation for her.
How powerful that must have been.
Those were powerful messages that we were able to deliver to the kids. And
now, was this was when they would go out to the parking lot and see?
That's the assembly the next day. I mean, I kind of went through a real nutshell, but there was a lot of powerful moments at the wreck. The mid-morning of the first day, that wreck would take place, and like I said, Gary and would always put together a good team we'd have anywhere from 3 to 5 cameras filming the entire event. And we had, like I said, all the local providers, law enforcement, EMS, fire, the helicopter, and then we took people to the hospital. They were transported by ambulance because the hospital district provided us 2 to 3 ambulances so we could transport people to the hospital. And Conroe Regional, we went to St. Luke's. We went to, I don't know if we ever did to the Methodist. I don't remember.
No, we did Memorial Hermann.
Memorial Hermann.
Yeah, Memorial
So
Hermann.
we did all at some point in time, all these hospitals were involved, and they all wanted to be involved. I mean, they would give us, 5 ERs. And it's early morning, so they weren't ever that busy, but they could say, well, you got all these five rooms to put people in. There usually was an ER doctor that would come in, and they'd be working on kids, and you can see that on video where they're actually kind of, giving them, trying to resuscitate them, and they got IVs going, they didn't really stick them, but they got IVs and whatever. And then we have the parents come in. And that's another one of those moving moments. If it's not on the scene where they're seeing their kid lying on the ground dead, then they're going to the hospital because they're still alive. But then the doctor turns to them and says, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." And they pronounce them at whatever time the clock says. And you can watch the emotion, true emotion from parents, just the thought of losing your child. Everybody knows it's not real. But
Doesn't matter.
in the moment, it's real for them.
Yeah.
In the moment, it's real for them. And the kids were just, I come in there. We never had a kid break character because they would tell us later how difficult it was to listen to their parent whispering in their ear, saying, "Just say something, move your hand," and they would just lay there, or the parents crying over them, their dad crying over them, and for kids to see their dad crying is always something. And so, for us, we'd watch it on the scene too. I think one of the best videos that I remember seeing was a firefighter who, because he would have been on scene with his truck, but his kid was in the program, so he had to be just a parent on the sidelines. Well, when his kid was laying there on the ground, and he walked over there, and Gary got a good video of the father. It makes me cry because it just the raw emotion.
Oh
And
man.
he was holding on his ring. It was something. It was something to watch. And so, but those are all true.
Was the school announcing? Were they announcing that there's been an accident?
What the program goes this way because, and I'll go back to the very beginnings. The program originated as the every 15-minute program, and originally it came from Chico, California, and there was an outfit, the police department out of Mansfield, Texas, which is where the people from here saw it, where they did it. It was every 15 minutes because back in the day, the statistic was every 15 minutes someone dies from an intoxication wreck, a drunk driving incident. Every 15 minutes, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And so, but when we brought it here and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, and the program was like ours. It was a 30-hour program. It had, steps in it. We didn't want to cut anything short. We kept it from pretty much as original as we could, other than the name. And we called them Shadow Lives of Montgomery County. And the of Montgomery County became important because over the years I've had people from as far as Wisconsin call me and said, "Can you come do this here?" Well, no, not really, because I don't know everybody.
Right.
It takes a team.
Somebody that lives there.
It takes an effort from a community. And when I talk to parents here when we were outlining the program in the beginning, I always talk to them about their program. This is a community program. It wasn't my program.
Mm-hmm.
It helped. We helped the community, and because of the community coming together and all the services, and I didn't even mention the funeral homes and the record drivers and all these people that have to come and do work a wreck. You have to start thinking about it. It's not just an accident that you see a cop and an ambulance pull up. I mean, you got everybody else cleaning it up, taking the kids somewhere, the hospital, the helicopter flying in and transporting one of the kids, which is what they always wanted to do. All the kids love that part, and just watching the bird fly in was always something. But in the school, we did do it. We kept it every 15 minutes because every 15 minutes, once school started, after the last bell in the morning rang, we'd start every 15 minutes. There would be a heartbeat throughout the school, and it was a heartbeat and then a flat line. And at that point, once that ended, someone would knock on someone's door somewhere in the school.
Oh.
So every 15 minutes, someone was going to die, and an obituary was going to get read, and it was going to get hung in the hallway for the rest of the students to see it throughout the day.
So that's how it was announced, and they knew this was coming. And then you guys set up on the parking lot.
Usually,
Did you set up like a wreck,
Yes.
like the car
Yes,
and the
we had-
blood and all that?
and we had the cars donated and everything else, and we were out there the night before. Again, myself, and as years went over, so my team handled setting up the wreck. We'd have people who staged the wreck, 2 cars head on or a car sideways or whatever, and flip them over. And without the help of the emergency services and the firemen, and everybody helping shore up a car that's upside down so it doesn't move or doesn't wreck, doesn't make sure there are no fluids in the car. All those kind of things had to be checked before.
Oh man!
So the night before we'd have the wreck set up, and then we'd cover it all up with tarps because people knew it was out there when they came to school the next day because we took up an entire parking lot pretty much. But that's all part of it. And again, that mid-morning when people went out there, they'd usually dismiss the junior and senior classes to go watch. The kids were already out there laid out or hanging out over the hood or whatever they were. So it was a fantastic visual for everybody
Had the
to see.
parents arrived
The
yet?
parents were there already. Yes,
They were already there.
They
with
were
them.
there. We had them there, and then we take them out, put them out there before we had the student body come out. They had the best seats because we were going to ask them.
I'm exhausted from. I'm just going.
We were
oh
go-
my gosh!
But we were going to
no."
come get you out of the audience and have one of the officers come get you and say, can you step with me? Is your son so and so? Yes, he is. But and they bring you out. They bring you out to the wreck and say, we need you to identify the body. And then so there you go. And so all those things again, and the parents would obviously, some of them were pretty stoic. Most of the men try to be stoic. I mean, you watch them. But sometimes not so much. They'd see their child either battered and bruised, maybe a bone sticking out or whatever it was, and that's what made it real. We tried to make it as real as we could for everybody, and again, then off to the retreat that night, and then back to the school the next day.
Now, did you have students
Volunteer.
writing down what they, the impact it had on them, and or
we tried.
did everybody
we
have to write
We
letters?
did different things. In the first, there were a few years we even tried to do a scholarship. We're trying to do something because we didn't even talk about the fundraising yet, and
Right.
and if we had a little bit of money, we'd try to maybe have them do something and maybe have $1,000 or $2,000 or something, but it got more difficult for us to do. The more students there are, there's more to read and more to do. The parents write the obituary, and that's a couple weeks before. The students at their retreat would write a letter home, and the parents would also write a eulogy the night before, right after the wreck. We'd have them writing an obituary, a eulogy, and then we'd have the kids writing letters home, mom and dad, or mom or whoever.
Was this ever taken to the funeral home? I mean, where?
Well, some parents were taken to the funeral home to see their kids. Some of the kids were taken to the funeral. Oh, actually, I take that back. The kids were going to the funeral home, and some of the funeral directors here would give them a tour of the back, as they got there. At the hospital, obviously, it's just a hospital. Once we got the parents to leave, then the kids would all get up and clean up and stuff. But it was as lifelike as we could. There were experiences there. Somebody went to jail, but the Gary went to jail too with our kids at one time. So we always have a kid go to jail. And they'd lock him up in the back. The sheriff's department was always very, very, good to us about that. And
so
as much realism as we could add to it.
So much realism, and how amazing that was. And so I know that what you're getting ready to do is to expose, huge amounts of people to this, and be able to make them relive it as well. And you imagine after this gets going that how many. Everybody sit down in the living room. We're going to watch this. You're going to watch this. You're getting ready to go out on prom. You're going to watch this before you go.
This is the most logical progression. I said that the other day.
Yes.
We had these programs for 20 years or so. COVID killed it because once that hit, we could never gather groups together and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't really get there. And we haven't really come back. And, after 24 years, I'm kind of tired anyway. And so,
but this is going on Channel 21.
Yes, yes it is. And Gary can talk to you about the program itself.
Okay, Gary, I don't even know.
That's why.
Okay, this is perfect. You've done half of the show, and now, but I mean, I know y'all work in you're doing this side by side, and Gary said, Mike knows everything about this, so you need to let Mike talk about this, and then I'll take it to the.
That's why I
the
say I can take
production
an hour and a
level.
half and keep talking, but I need to stop. I know.
No. No, we'll do like a 3-parter. This will be fine. No, that's what's, you have so many stories, and the realistic stories, I mean, the stories that really happen, and all that you have to probably go through, and what you've had to go through, Gary, to see, to be able to get a sense of what you want to bring to the the parents and the kids to try and stop this. I've always talked to, I've heard kids in the back seat, and they were talking about how this cop pulled me over just because I was going like 10 miles over an hour. I couldn't believe it. I said, you know what the deal is? You need to be so happy that policeman pulled you over, because you got to go home that night. And I get so mad at him. And I said, you were the one that was doing the wrong thing, and then he stopped you, but your parents got you that night. Because imagine if you had kept speeding like that. You don't know who you could have killed, or you've been killed. And so it is so important for kids not to have that kind of attitude. And I imagine that would break it down real fast. So what is your part, Gary? Tell me.
Well, just to say something real quick about having worked with Mike all these years, I've done video and film production now for 50 years. So I've done about
50
everything you
years.
can do in the business.
And you're only 35.
I know, it's crazy. I've worked on 20 feature films. I've done 12 documentaries myself. I've been a contractor for Chevron, gone offshore, and done a bunch of stuff. This was the one thing I did that really always I was proud of. I felt like it was something good for the world that we were doing.
Oh, yes.
And I thank Mike for giving me that opportunity. We tried our best to end up with a video that captured all the hard work that so many people put into this. The law enforcement, the paramedics, the fire department, the district attorney's office, all these people who played their part and their role in this, and the students and the teachers and all those people. Him and I tried to put together a video for every school that was unique. It had some kind of a different twist to it, had different music to it. But it was something that they could look at and remember that point in time in their life.
Sure.
And we've done this long enough now that every once in a while I meet somebody who's a mother now and has children who was in our program way back in the day, and goes, I'll never forget that. And so that was the purpose of it. And for over 20 years, that's what we did. And I was very proud of that work, and felt like, of all the things I've done, this is something that could have a very positive impact, on some.
For so long. You know how long this is going to, stay on the cloud and be brought down and watched and all.
But we figured out is over 500,000 people have watched these videos over the years, because we'd do, I think at the height we did 4 schools in 1 year.
At least 4. 1 year we did 5, but we did 4 every spring, and so, that's, I don't know, maybe 300. I always say it was about 300 kids in the program out of all those schools. Now that's not very many in the scheme of things, but each one of those kids has, I always said, each one of those kids has at least 10 friends. They're going to go back to school, and they're going to talk about this to 10 of their friends. And so there's the exponential impact of the program. But people say, well, you're only taking 60 kids. I mean, we got 2,000 here. I said, yeah, we'll get 600 of them easily.
Definitely. And I was going to say that it has to be a school. You have to have these kids see people they know,
exactly.
and be able to connect with, for it to have such an impact on. But still, it's impactful just by watching, what you're going to produce and all, what you have produced and what you're going to produce. And we're doing here in Conroe. That's just so awesome. You should be so proud that your studio is getting ready to do something like this. Now, y'all haven't started. You haven't started the series yet, though.
We did a fundraiser last weekend.
Yeah, last Saturday.
And why didn't you tell me about it? It's
now
okay.
I'm thinking of all the people I should have told. But we shot one little scene for the opening of it, because what we're doing is we're doing a fundraiser right now to raise funds to do the pilot, episode 1. And we shot the one little opening scene where a constable, Gene DeForce, who plays constable in the film, him and the fireman, who's a retired Houston fireman, Sean Gorley, come up on a scene where a teenager had actually had an accident, T-boned somebody, and killed her 2 little brothers. And so you just see a clip of that where, you know, and Gene says something like, they're all gone, and the fireman, you know, just the emotion of seeing those little guys, you know, that were killed. And so we did that, and we did a little opening for the show, and we've got that much done. So officially we started production. We've raised a pretty good amount of money at this point. We need more to actually start this first series and do the pilot, but we're well on our way. And the idea behind this, Bruce May, who is my film school partner, we do a film school for the last couple of years, and the idea was to take the Shattered Lives of Montgomery County program and then share that with a much bigger audience by doing a 10-part television series. It started out actually as a feature film, and then I told Bruce, yeah, let's make a 10-part series of it. And as a script writer, you can imagine, I've just spent, you know, all this time writing a 90-minute movie, and now you want 400 minutes? Are you crazy? And you want how many characters? But he did a phenomenal job. We have a beautiful script that's very good. And then he met a man named Ken Parks, who's a music composer, worked in Nashville for 20 years and has a recording studio here in Conroe. And he came on board, and he's writing music for the film. And at the fundraiser, 2 of the guys who play people in the series, both musicians are actually performed and they're writing songs for it and so forth. So the series is going to be sort of a fictional version of what Mike used to do on a bigger scale that'll relate to more people.
I can see a huge merch table with the T-shirts, with the music, the albums and stuff to be able to sold, and it'd be great. It's just going to be amazing. Yeah. Oh my goodness! And this would be, and we'll go ahead and contact. Let's see, I guess put it in the Grand. You'll have to show. You know, you can show the TV series in the Grand and rent it and have everybody come see it there.
Yeah, we'll have a premiere for episode 1 when we get it done. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the trick and what Bruce has worked so hard on. The trick, of course, if you watch a series like Yellowstone or something, you know, that's very popular, the trick is to get a good first couple of episodes that people will stick with. Mm-hmm. You know, that they'll watch, because the big accident, which is the biggest part of the story, doesn't happen until episode 4. So we've got to keep them, you know, keep them in the game to get to them to episode 4, where the big accident is. And of course, the idea behind that, and the way Bruce wrote it, was that you meet these families, you meet our young, you know, protagonist, who's a great young man. He's very popular at school, just like, you know, many schools in the country. Everybody loves him. He's you know, a basketball star. He can sing. He's all these things. And we see his problems he has. You know, he's got a mom who's a missionary doing God's work across, you know, the world. And I guess she doesn't realize, because she's doing God's work across the world, that maybe she's missing out a little bit with her son. But, you know, that's where God's called her. And his dad is struggling with his business. He's a music producer, and he's about to lose his biggest client, and their lifestyle's about to change. And so there's such stress and struggle there. And we tell the backstory of all these things in the first couple episodes, and we meet all his friends. You know, everybody had I know Mike and I had, you know, a friend in high school who was our really good friend, but he always got us in trouble. He was always getting us to do something we shouldn't have done. And so James has a friend like that. And James's dad leaves town and says, please don't have a party while I'm gone.
Oh, no.
And James goes, I want Dad. Well, his friend gets a wind of that and goes, man, we're having a party, everybody, you know. And so before he knows it, James is a host of a big party on a night when his dad's out of town, and they're drinking and they're partying. They're doing stuff that high school kids do and adults do as well, as far as that goes. But they end up tragically. James ends up T-boning his best friend in the other car. They're racing off to the liquor store to get more liquor for the party, and kills all the people in his car and all the people in their car. And so, by consequence, and we wanted to make this as realistic as possible, I even introduced Bruce to some prison ministry friends of mine, and Bruce came back from that meeting with his eyes about as big as saucers, going, "Oh my gosh." So James goes through the process. Mike's a defense attorney now, so he's a great reference too. But he goes through the process, and he goes off to prison. He does his time for what he did, and the story continues. The series continues to go back and forth to what's going on with these families trying to heal from this. I lost my first daughter died when she was 6 months old of a crib death. Sudden infant death syndrome. And that was very devastating. And I have friends along the way who've lost children who are older. And I realized the longer your child is here, the more attached you get to it, and the harder it is to let them go.
Sure.
You never really let it go. I mean, my daughter would be 45 now, and I still think about her every day of my life. So we want to show how these people handle this healing and how they handle the forgiveness of James. And so by the end of the movie, James is basically forgives himself, the town forgives him, and it's a beautiful story of redemption and forgiveness, all wrapped around what Mike Valdez started 22 years ago.
That's amazing. That just the story behind the stories that you've got is so incredible and compelling. And I think that you've got to, say hit, but I think that you've got something that's going to actually, stay around a long time. And you've watched, I can tell, listening to you and telling me these stories that you're watching on cable, the series.
I studied that. I still study that. My good friend Bob Gaspar is the director of photography on this series, and I still learn little things from him all the time. I'm really a student. I love learning. I love growing. I like to know that by the end of the day, I learned some little something I didn't know when I started. And so yeah, I've watched all the really good series I could find on TV to see how they do it, see how they develop those stories, see how they drag you along. Because the real deal with the most popular series is, of course, at the end of each show, you go, wait, don't end now. What happens next?
That's right. And the ones that'll make you wait 6 weeks before you can even find. Now, see, our attention span is so bad as a country that I don't know how they take that chance, because by then I've gone on to another series. I'm trying to forgive them for that, but that's you're right. There has to be a strategy to that as well, and not show everything up at front. I hope we haven't done spoiler alerts for everybody. Okay.
No,
All right.
Everybody knows what's going to happen. I mean, most people are familiar with the program who are interested in this and interested in helping. I truly believe that once it's done, once it's out there, that it'll become a national program, because it's not only, we talk about the kids, the high school kids a lot, but we realize pretty early on it's definitely for everybody. Adults make dumb decisions as much as young people do, maybe more sometimes. And so it was good to it was good for them to be emotionally involved in this too. And the other night at the fundraiser, there were some people there that hadn't seen any bits and pieces of the videos and what we'd put together before, and they were like, I'm shocked.
That's
just looking at something we did years 2019. Ago. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so real. I'm uncomfortable. And we're like, well, that's good. The nights that we would stay up and edit, because we'd start this thing at early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. The accident would happen about 9 o'clock, and this thing would go on all day long. Sometimes we'd go to the hospital, of course. We'd go to the funeral home. We'd go all these places. And so Mike would be running all this, and I'd rush back to the studio because I had 4 guys shooting this hour-long accident scene at the same time, and I wanted to use the best footage. So we'd go back, we'd start working, and I'd pick my music and so forth, and Mike would come see me usually about 7 or 8 in the evening going, "How we doing?" You know, and he'd get a break at the retreat. And I'd say, "Well, we're doing pretty good. Why don't you wait? Give me a couple hours, and we'll look at it and see."
Like, come back at 11, or later.
And there were a few times he literally left the studio and ran over and stuck it in the machine. But we got better as time went on. But what I knew we had a hit when he had come into my studio and have an edit suite with some theater seats and stuff, you know, and I had no popcorn for him. But he'd sit back over and I'd start playing it. And I was sitting behind my edit monitors watching it, and the music would start and the video would start and stuff, and it would start because I hadn't probably seen it in its entirety myself either, and I'd start watching it, and I could do pretty good until the dads started getting emotional, and that would wipe me out on the scene. It would, in an edit suite, I start kind of getting teary, and I'd look over there and I'd see Michael with a tear, and I go, "Man, we've got a winner this time," and we'd both say, "Okay, this is one of our best ones." But we would give every one of them 1,000% of what we could, because we knew this is, out of all the efforts of everybody for that day, this video would be what people could take home and see and watch, and would live on forever. And that's what we want to do with the series. We want to leave something, a legacy, so to speak, of all that work, of all those people that can,
and those kids, and for them to remember,
yeah,
and to tell their children about it, or you know, when they have kids, they really won't understand as much until their kids are going off with the driver to learn to drive that car, and they're thinking, "Oh my word, why can't you just ride a bike or something?" And can't we get someplace we can just walk to it? But I think that it's so good to have something like this, and that the parents are involved, because right now parents are feeling very left out of everything at school. And so to have anything that brings them together, I think, you know, because I'm sure by doing all that, they've met all their kids' friends, and they've met their parents and things like that, that it does bring the whole school together, you know. So, and I'm so proud that Willis, that's where I live. I live in Willis, and I'm so proud that Willis High School.
I always give them credit for being the first.
I'll have to.
I talk to too many school boards and just other parents and other adults. They're like, "Oh, no. When all the kids on the other side were going, yes. Bring it. But the kids know who the problem kids are. They know what the problems are in the school. The adults, I'm not going to say they were clueless, but they didn't want to accept it.
Well, and for a school to say, "No, that's just too violent," and all that, but you're going to let them have the books in their library, that, you know, all you have to do is bring one of the books out and go, like, if you're going to let them read this, you're going to let them, they need to watch this.
Well, again, that was back in the early 2000s, so
yeah,
maybe it hadn't progressed. A lot has changed. I don't know that we didn't, of course, after, you know, the first 4 or 5 years, we were just being invited back. All the schools were like, "You're coming back, right? You're coming back." And there was no resistance to having the program. And you talk about spoilers. We tried for the longest time to not talk about the obituaries out in public to anybody, because we wanted you as a parent to be shocked at that point. But of course, at some point, you know, some parents are saying, "Well, I've already written my obituary," and we look at them and go, "No, it doesn't work that way." You know, we take it and like tear it up, like start writing again. You know, because it's just not the way you do it. You know, of course, you know, that spoiled it because they already knew, especially when you return to a school a couple of times, and so, you know, it lost some effect, but there were still plenty of people who never heard of it.
But that's brilliant. You got to write an obituary for your kid, and which you feel like you'll never do. Like a parent doesn't bury a child, but they do, and so that's. I mean, how horrible would that be to have to do that? I think that's a great thing to teach parents, or to get the word out. You know, if y'all have some Friday night that you're going to sit and watch, you know, some movie or something like that, you ought to have kids sit down and we're going to write your obituary, and we're going to and
Talk about
say,
your
wait,
friends.
I'm not going anywhere, Mom. I'm just here. Don't do that. But they need to know. I mean, I can't tell you. Every kid will have imagined their funeral, because they'll be mad at somebody or a teacher's been mean to them, stuff. Like, boy, you know what? If I died, y'all be crying. Y'all be, so mad, so upset, and all that. So that that they imagine how that will be. They don't imagine that they're never going to come back. See, but the funeral part, they want to know everybody's going to be miserable and screaming and crying.
You're missing 'em.
That's how it's going to be. And I don't think that's changed, because I've asked my kids, have you ever thought about what's going to say? Oh, yeah, because we think about suicide all the time. And so I went, what? You wait. Let's go back. Let's go back.
Maybe
What
I shouldn't
is
have brought this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't start thinking about it again.
That's right. And they start talking about how that they all discuss suicide. They did talk about it, and it's a hot topic with all of us. And I went, I've never heard that before. I'm so glad you told me about that, because you need to think that all the way through. I mean, that's something that you can't just do. Like,
Can't undo it.
it has to be all the way through. But listen, you guys have got very important time on. I mean, what you're going to be doing with the time that you've got coming up, and I'm so proud and honored that you guys came and shared this with us, and that there's got to be more. I mean, because the events that are going to come up that you want people to know about, you've got to let us know so that we can have you on, talk about it, and all that. But we just. And you definitely, they had wanted to get a copy of this. And so I said, it's going to be on Facebook, like, immediately. And then on YouTube on the Cindy Cochran Show. But it'll be up and running. And if you guys want to, take it and do what you need to do
We'll
with
share
it.
it.
That's,
Sure.
yes.
Definitely
I mean,
share it.
that's what this is for, and what Richard has worked so hard is make sure that the community is aware of things. And so and this is really important. And as soon as I can get off here so I can go, really cry. I'm trying so hard to hold it back, because I'm so sensitive to this. And just the thought of it, and you just telling the stories about what I know hadn't happened. It's not real, but it doesn't make any difference. We know it's happened somewhere to somebody, something, sometimes. So everybody's been affected in some way, and they can relate to it. So I just thank you guys so much for being here. And that went by so fast. I can't believe it. It's amazing. And it wasn't painful, was it, Mike?
No.
Okay,
I've done it too long.
I know. I know. Watching you do an interview, he's so laid back, like, yeah, I can tell y'all all about this, but you're going to have to see it. You're going to have to see it to believe it. But anyway, I want to also thank, again, our sponsor, the Wootton Financial Group. Thank you so much for letting us be here and do this. And also the first responders. I always end with thanking the first responders. And I'm so glad y'all brought them up and praised them, because it's just amazing. And I just can't believe how brave they are, and how they run to it, we run away from it, and they're going to it. And so we feel safe in Conroe. We love our first responders and Willis. Okay, he's going like this. All right, I know what that means. All right, okay, thank you. See you.
Every week, people ask the same two questions. Are they ready to retire? Will their savings last for their lifetimes? Hi, this is Chris Wootton with Wootton Financial Group. Our firm has been in Montgomery County for decades, but the hopes and dreams of the people we serve never change. We help answer these two questions and many more that people have about their uncertain financial future. We have a simple introductory client experience that allows us to get to know the client and includes a few meetings for the client to kick the tires at no charge. We provide a concise, one-page summary that helps the client get a better handle on which questions are the right questions for them. To learn more about Wootton Financial Group's process in helping their clients to a clearer financial future and to see their contact information, visit Cindy Cochran Show page on irlonestar.com/TCCS. Wootton Financial Group is a proud sponsor of the Cindy Cochran Show. Wootton Financial Group is available by phone at 936-449-5952 or visit them on the web at www.woottonfinancial.com. That's www.woottonfinancial.com. www.wootton financial.com.
This program is sponsored by the Wootton Financial Group. It is not the intent of Wootton Financial Group to render or offer personalized investment advice or financial planning advice through this radio program or any related website. Wootton Financial Group's participation in this program is limited to providing general information on financial matters and should not be construed as financial recommendation or investment advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Game Plan Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the state of Texas. Insurance services are offered through Wootton Financial Group, Inc. Game Plan Advisors and Wootton Financial Group, Inc. are affiliated through common ownership, and neither firm is affiliated with The Cindy Cochran Show. No listener should assume that any information presented and or made available on this program serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized individual advice from Game Plan Advisors, Wootton Financial Group, or any of their representatives.